It's it's hard to believe. It's already been almost 2 months since that submersible, the Titan, went missing.
June 18th.
Yeah, 2023.
Yeah.
And it really just captured the world's attention for days, didn't it?
It did. And, the North Atlantic, it's been the setting for, well, for maritime tragedies before.
Right.
This one, though, it was, I think, particularly poignant because of the connection to the Titanic.
Of course. I mean, the Titan was on its way to the Titanic, and then the Titan itself met a similar fate.
Exactly. And, 5 lives were lost, drawing to that very same spot that had claimed so many others over a century ago.
It's it's a chilling reminder of the power of the ocean. It's just unforgiving.
It is, and different to our ambitions. And within this modern tragedy, well, there was that enduring mystique of the Titanic itself.
Right. I mean, the people on board the Titan, they were connected to this story in different ways. You had, the thrill seeker. You had the family carrying a legacy, and then the visionary behind the submersible itself.
Yes. But there was one person in particular that made this event even more resonant.
Paul-Henri Nargeolet.
Yes. A historian, a Titanic expert.
He'd been down to that wreck, over 30 times? I mean, it's remarkable.
It is, to dedicate your life to understanding this disaster and then to become a part of its history in such a tragic way.
It's almost too much to grasp, It makes you think,
Yeah.
why? Why does the Titanic, after all these years, why does it still hold this power over us?
I think to truly get it, to understand the grip it has, you really have to go back to the beginning of the 20th century, to the world that created the Titanic.
A world so different from ours.
Right,
Yes.
absolutely. I mean, back then, crossing the Atlantic, that was a journey, not a quick flight. We're talking weeks at sea.
Weeks, yeah.
So the ocean, it was this immense frontier, powerful, yes, and dangerous, absolutely. But also it represented luxury. It was the connection between continents. It was everything.
And of course, it was a time of intense competition for those shipping lines. They were all vying for dominance, for prestige.
Exactly. Steam power, it had really revolutionized transatlantic travel. And so there was this race to build the biggest, the fastest, the most luxurious ships imaginable. It was about national pride. It was about being the best.
And that's where the Titanic comes in, right? It's the embodiment of this ambition.
It is. In 1907, you had Bruce Ismay, the chairman of the White Star Line,
Okay.
and Lord Peary, who headed the shipbuilders Harland and Wolff in Belfast. They came up with this audacious plan: 3 ships, the Olympic, the Titanic, and the Gigantic, which was later renamed the Britannic. They wanted to rule the Atlantic, to make transatlantic travel synonymous with their name.
It's incredible. And so the work began, right? March 31st, 1909, Belfast.
Yeah. Imagine the scene. Over 3,000 workers. This massive shipyard. It was like a small city had sprung up around the construction of this one ship.
And they were using cutting-edge technology, new methods. It was really pushing the boundaries of what was possible at the time.
Oh, absolutely. They had to build custom cranes just to lift the massive steel plates.
The scale of it all. I mean, if you were to build the Titanic today, it's estimated it would cost over $200 million.
That's right. A huge sum. And tragically, of course, it wasn't without its risks.
Right. 8 workers lost their lives during the construction.
A reminder that progress, even back then, it came at a cost.
The cost, yeah. And then by April 1912, after all those years of work, the Titanic was finally ready.
The maiden voyage from Southampton, destination New York.
With stops in Cherbourg and Queenstown along the way.
Over 2,200 people on board, from all walks of life, all bound for different destinies.
It was a floating city. Really,
Yeah.
a microcosm of the world at that time.
Precisely. And the ship itself, the Titanic, it was designed to reflect the social structures of the era. I mean, the layout of the decks, it tells the story.
Oh, absolutely. Let's take a walk through the Titanic. Let's imagine ourselves on board. So we start at the top, the lifeboat deck.
Right. And this, of course, is where that tragic irony lies.
Yeah. Only 20 lifeboats for over 2,200 people. It's inconceivable to us now.
It is. But you have to remember, back then, the Titanic was considered unsinkable. The lifeboats, they were more for transferring passengers to rescue ships if there was an emergency.
An emergency that no one thought would ever happen.
Right. And the regulations at the time, they were based on a ship's tonnage. And the Titanic technically met those.
I see.
Plus, there was this idea that more lifeboats would clutter the deck. Spoil view, especially for the first-class passengers.
Aesthetics over safety. It's a lesson that unfortunately we've seen repeated throughout history.
It is a reminder that even with the best technology, the best intentions, human error, and a failure to imagine the worst-case scenario, it can lead to disaster.
Okay, so let's move down to A deck. This is where the first-class passengers lived, with
Okay.
pure luxury.
Oh, imagine it. The reading rooms, the smoking lounges, you could stroll on the promenade deck, and of course, there was a grand staircase.
Grand staircase, yeah. It's iconic. So many images from the Titanic, it's that staircase.
It was the heart of the ship. Opulent, grand, a symbol of the Titanic's, well, of its grandeur.
And then B deck, even more luxurious suites,
Some with private promenades. And then you had the a la carte restaurant,
where you could dine on the finest cuisine.
rivaling anything you'd find on land.
It's amazing. And then, as we go down the decks, the opulence decreases. But even in second and third class, the accommodations were still pretty good.
Oh yeah, much better than on many other ships at the time. It was all part of the White Star Line's strategy to attract a wider range of passengers.
And beyond the cabins and dining rooms, the Titanic had all these amenities.
Oh yeah, a gym, a squash court, a
Yeah.
Turkish bath, even a heated swimming pool.
A heated swimming pool on a ship in 1912. That's crazy.
It was meant to be a floating paradise.
But below all that luxury, all that grandeur, there was another world. The world of the engine rooms, the boiler rooms.
Where hundreds of men worked tirelessly, shoveling coal into the furnaces, keeping the ship moving.
It must have been grueling work.
It was hot, dirty, dangerous, and absolutely essential to the Titanic's operation.
And those men, they played a crucial role in what happened next.
On the night of April 14th, 1912, the Titanic was sailing at full speed. The sea was calm, the sky was clear, but there was a hidden danger lurking beneath the surface.
Icebergs.
Yes, and throughout that day, the Titanic received multiple warnings from other ships by wireless telegraph.
But some of those warnings, they didn't reach the captain, or they weren't taken seriously enough.
That's right. There was no standardized system for prioritizing messages, so some of those iceberg warnings, they got lost in the shuffle.
And then there was the SS Californian, just 10 miles away.
They tried to warn the Titanic, but their messages were dismissed.
I remember reading about that. The Titanic's radio operators were busy sending passenger messages. They told the Californian to shut up.
It's a haunting thought that those casual dismissals, that prioritizing passenger comfort over potential danger, it might have sealed the Titanic's fate.
So the Titanic sailed on into the night. And just before midnight, the lookout in the crow's nest, he spotted it. An iceberg. Deadhead.
Too late to avoid a collision.
The impact, it wasn't a huge crash, more like a shudder.
But the damage was done. Below the waterline, the iceberg hadn't ripped a single gash in the hull. It had caused a series of brittle fractures.
Brittle fractures.
Yes. The steel used in the hull, it wasn't the best quality. It contained too much sulfur. And in the cold Atlantic water, it became brittle. It snapped instead of bending.
Oh, wow.
And then there were the rivets. Some of them were made of wrought iron. With too much slag, it made them weak, so they popped under the stress of the impact.
So it wasn't just the iceberg, it was the steel, it was the rivets, these seemingly small things that contributed to the disaster.
It's a reminder that even the smallest details can matter, especially in engineering.
And there was another factor, right? The coal bunker fire.
Yes. A fire had been burning in one of the coal bunkers for days before the Titanic even left Southampton. It had weakened a bulkhead.
A bulkhead.
A wall that separates compartments in the ship. And when the iceberg hit, that weakened bulkhead, it failed, allowing water to flood in.
So you had the impact, the brittle steel, the weak rivets, and the weakened bulkhead, all contributing to the Titanic's demise.
That's right. And the Titanic was designed to stay afloat with up to 4 compartments flooded. But the iceberg damaged 6.
And the watertight compartments, they weren't actually watertight, were they?
No, they only went up to a certain height. So as the bow sank lower, the water spilled over the tops of the compartments, flooding the next one and the next one.
Like a domino effect.
Exactly. And as the bow filled with water, the stern started to rise out of the water, putting immense stress on the ship.
And then?
Around 2:20 a.m., the Titanic broke in 2.
That must have been terrifying for the people on board.
It was. Survivors described hearing a loud groaning sound as the ship split apart.
I can't imagine.
It was chaos. People were panicking, lifeboats were being lowered, but many of them weren't full.
They were prioritizing women and children.
Yes. But some couples, they refused to be separated. They chose to die together.
And the engineers, the stokers, they stayed below deck, trying to keep the lights on, the power running.
Most of them didn't survive.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. And then, just over an hour later, the Carpathia arrived. They rescued 705 survivors, but over 1,500 people perished.
Lost to the icy waters.
Yes. And in the years since, there have been so many questions. What if the Titanic had slowed down? What if the lookouts had binoculars? What if they had listened to the Californian?
There's even the theory that atmospheric conditions created an optical illusion, making the iceberg hard to see.
And some experts believe that Captain Smith's decision to shut down the central propeller, it might have actually made the ship harder to steer.
It seems like so many things went wrong.
A perfect storm of human error and bad luck.
But maybe the biggest factor was that belief in the Titanic's unsinkability.
Yes, that overconfidence, that sense of invincibility. It led to complacency.
And ultimately, to tragedy.
It's a lesson that we can still learn from today, in any field. That we should never underestimate the power of nature. And that we should always be prepared for the unexpected.
But even with all the tragedy, all the loss, the story of the Titanic, it continues to fascinate us.
It does. It's a story of human ambition, human ingenuity, human error, and human resilience.
And it's a story of individual lives, like Isidore and Ida Strauss.
The couple who refused to be separated, who chose to face death together.
Their story, it reminds us that amidst the chaos, the terror, there was still love. There was still humanity.
And that's why the Titanic continues to resonate with us. It's a story about more than just a ship. It's a story about us. About what it means to be human.
And as we wrap up our deep dive today, I think it's important to remember that the Titanic, it's not just a story from the past.
It's a story that's still unfolding in the recent tragedy of the Titan, in our own lives.
And it's a story that asks us to consider, what are we building? What risks are we taking? And are we truly prepared for the unexpected?
I think those are questions worth pondering, don't you?
I do. I really do.
Because the legacy of the Titanic, it's not just about remembering the past. It's about shaping the future.
And ensuring that we learn from the mistakes of those who came before us.
So that we can build a better, safer world for ourselves and for generations to come.
Thank you for listening.
And for joining us on this deep dive into history.
And for really thinking about the lessons that the Titanic and the Titan that they hold for us all.
Because the story, as we've seen, it's far from over.
It is. It really is.